Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first we want to acknowledge our podcast partners, We Coach, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. These are two great organizations that you really need to be a part of. Global Community of Women in High School Sports and We Coach. Check them out. And now let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor scoring tables and video boards. They not only raise money for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. We've got a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com to schedule a live web demo. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to thank our good friends at Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards for all the sports, for all the events, and your school's Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. They've got a ton of interactive touchscreen consoles and a library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. You can also email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com to get started. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in forms and registration. But Final Forms is so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, and they've got reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come when you have an athlete in the house. Final Forms can also help your coaches with things like attendance and communication. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with things like eligibility and rosters and all the reports that come across your desk. You know, it's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. We also want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. It's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com, tell them you heard about it on the podcast, and use the podcast code ADPOD10 and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom branded content for your school's social media channel. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com, and they're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets online. They'll show you how to scan the attendees that come to your games and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you will have a dedicated client success manager that's providing you hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to sell tickets for things like school dances, school plays, concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their teams and their athletes play better using video and analytics. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just love the mobile apps, the smart cameras. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle is also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high schools and colleges. Go to huddle.com and you're going to find a professional grade solution for your video and analytics. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Go to huddle.com and find out how your school can become a Huddle school. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Go to snapraise.com or go to their parent company onsnap.com and see all the ways that their platform can help you. From a fundraising standpoint, SnapRaise is just fantastic. Our coaches use SnapRaise, and as an athletic director, I really loved it. The program worked, and I knew what was going on, but I didn't have to be involved. There's no upfront cost. Your data is secure. There's no inventory, and it works. They even have a platform where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Go to snapraise.com and put the SnapRaise digital fundraising difference to work for your school and check out the thousands and thousands of dollars that they've helped schools just like yours raise using SnapRaise. Change your fundraising game plan. Start a fundraiser that works for you. Go to snapraise.com to get started. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. At my schools, we use surveys for just about everything, for teachers, for coaches, for kids, and for parents. And the information that came back was almost always overwhelmingly positive, and it'll be the same for you too. But the surveys also allow that squeaky wheel parent to vent a little bit, and sometimes they're going to share a small issue that you can address and keep it from turning into a big issue because you didn't know about it, because you didn't do a survey. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at athleticsurveys.com and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Got a cool guest today, and we're staying right here in the state of Florida. Kyle Elmendorf. He's the Director of Coaching and Media Relations for a company called Lead 'em Up. Kyle and I connected on LinkedIn a while ago, and we've been trying to get this episode recorded, so we're excited to have him. Kyle Elmendorf, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on here. And as you mentioned, I just kind of started following you and what you've been sharing on LinkedIn and kind of the service you provide to your members and your listeners. And couldn't be more happy to join you today. So appreciate your time and for having me on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those kind words, and you've got some cool posts as well. And I'm excited to have you share for our listeners. So let's jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that origin story, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up to the college years for the first segment, and then we'll hear more about your early career. But what's the Kyle Elmendorf story?
Yeah, absolutely. Born in a small town in Missouri, and grew up my whole life outside of St. Louis in a city called St. Charles, Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
And went to grade school there, high school, and kind of grew up with an athletic background and family. Grew up, playing football, basketball, baseball, all of that as a youth. And really things kind of changed for me, I guess, sixth grade. Kind of my background with that was football. Is I was done playing soccer and didn't really want to do anything. And my uncle was a football coach, and he was at, I think, Troy High School, and then moved down to Hillsboro at the time. And I was entering in sixth grade, and I was done kind of playing soccer and didn't want to do anything. And my parents literally drugged me to football practice crying. Didn't want to go, didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I went to that first practice and loved it. And ever since then, I was always hooked on it. And basketball was my first love as well. And I was fortunate. My dad coached me in basketball. Got to be a pretty decent player in football and in high school. Played for my uncle there. So I always kind of had that athletic background and knew that it was something that I just really enjoyed. And during those high school years, I would often in the summer times help out at the youth camps. And, whether it was community service hours or just if they needed help, before our high school camp, we would go up there during the morning and help out with the little kids. And I really enjoyed that. And I was fortunate as an athlete to have great coaches that really were kind of mentors for me. And I just always took to that, and I didn't see myself really doing anything else. And in that athletic background, I kind of started to form in my mind that I wanted to get into teaching and coaching. So high school ended. We had a great run of success in football. We lost my senior year to the state in the state semifinals. And, at that time it was heartbreaking, but I look back on it, and had we won that game and probably played for a state championship, my college trajectory would have been different. We lost, and I kind of took a step back and evaluated things a little bit, and ultimately decided that I wasn't going to play in college when I could have walked on at maybe some D2 schools or went, a little bit smaller level and played, but ultimately decided that I was going to, go to school for social studies in the secondary level and become a teacher and a coach. And so I decided to go to Warrensburg up in, near Kansas City. Now it's called UCM, and got my degree there in social studies. And after that, got into teaching and coaching right away, and really have been in that for any capacity for those two sports, and in teaching for about 17 years. And then now I've been fortunate to kind of transition and move to lead them up.
People that listen to this podcast hear me say this all the time, but it's true. I just love listening to the stories and parallels. Definitely. When I was in college, I was actually at a small college playing football, but one of our duties that we had was we would go to the local youth football practices as the college players, and we'd help out as coaches. And that's where I kind of got the coaching bug. So I know just what you're feeling. And
Yep.
all those small towns you just mentioned in Missouri, I coached back in the 90s at Missouri Valley College in Marshall. And so I
Yeah.
know all of those. Made the recruiting trips. We watched games. So, very cool. Very cool to hear.
Wow.
Well,
Small world. I did not know that you were at Marshall for a time. I used to drive through
actually,
there all the time.
for our listeners, we recorded this episode back in October. But talking right now to you, Kyle, I'm actually headed back to Marshall, Missouri this weekend as we record for their Hall of Fame. One of our players from that era is being inducted. And so the coaches, we all stay in contact with each other. We're all driving back there. It's going to be a great weekend. So very
Very
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, talk a little bit about, after college, you mentioned social studies teaching, what brought you to the state of Florida? We're not quite ready to get into lead them up
Yeah.
yet, but take us on that next part of your journey.
Yeah. So after college, I went back, and again, very, very fortunate for the people I had in my life. I was placed as a student teacher with a basketball legend in Missouri, Terry Hollander, who was the boys basketball coach at St. Charles West. And great teacher and great coach, great person to learn from. And so during that time when I was, student teaching with Terry, I was able to go back then and coach freshman football at Duchesne High School in St. Charles, and then coached freshman basketball there. So after that year of initial coaching and teaching experience, again, very blessed to go to Orchard Farm High School. And that's in St. Charles, Missouri, right at the confluence of the rivers down there in, Missouri, kind of on that Illinois border. Could not have asked for a better place to really begin my, career as a teacher and a coach. And there I was able to kind of really get involved in multiple things, but football wise, I was able to coach all levels, all the way from offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator to JV and freshman levels. And there wasn't one level that I enjoyed more than the other. I just was very blessed to work with great kids and great people down there, and then was able to coach basketball as well. And I started as a JV boys basketball coach there. And about midway through my time, I spent 14 years in Missouri teaching at Orchard Farm High School. And the last 8, I was able to be the head girls basketball coach at Orchard Farm High School. And that was one of the most rewarding experiences and most fun that I've had in coaching was being the head girls basketball coach there and working with those young women. And really able to do a lot of good things, and they're building something special down there now too. So it's kind of fun from a different state to see what's going on there. But yeah, that was my background for 14 years there, kind of in that realm. And then, in 2019, our family made a move down to Florida. So that's kind of where we were at.
Hmm. Again, the journeys that we take, and those experiences that we have, coaching JV football, coaching girls basketball, all goes into what we're doing right now. We're going to hear a little bit more when we come back. We're getting ready to take our first break. Our guest today is Kyle Elmendorf. He's the director of coaching and media relations for Lead 'em Up. And please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Sideline Interactive indoor scoring tables and video boards. Their products not only raise money for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience in your gym. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com to see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. We've got a Sideline Interactive indoor scoring table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com to find out more. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com, and they're going to show you how to set up and sell your tickets for your events online. They'll show you how to scan your attendees and collect your revenue. And every step of the way, you're going to have a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. They'll also show you how to set up and sell tickets for things like school dances, school plays, concerts, even graduation. That's hometownticketing.com. Simple and easy online ticketing. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Kyle Elmendorf, the Director of Coaching and Media Relations for Lead 'em Up. We're going to hear more about Lead 'em Up in a minute, but Kyle, we always like to ask our guests to share the mentors that they've had during their career. None of us get to where we're at on our own. There's usually someone pushing us, patting us on the back, kicking us in the butt, whatever we need at that moment. So who are some of the mentors that you've had in your career?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. That's a great question and a great point that none of us get to where we're at, or none of us can really do life successfully on our own. So the people that I've been very fortunate to have in my life, obviously, is great male role models and influences in my family from, my dad, my grandfather. I was fortunate to learn, as I mentioned earlier, from Terry Hollander. My uncle, Charlie Elmendorf, was a very successful football coach in Missouri for a long time, and learned a lot playing for him and then just kind of working with him afterwards. And two people that really stand out, I've never met personally, but I've always looked to were John Wooden and Tony Dungy. And they've always been great mentors of mine, people that I've looked up to, not just for the success they had, but how they achieved success and how they treated people. And they were kind of really influential in shaping my coaching philosophy of who I wanted to be. And ultimately that led me to the road I'm on now, is always being more kind of drawn to the person rather than the player, and more than the people, more so than the X's and the O's. And kind of through that, I was fortunate to meet our founder and Lead 'em Up, Adam Bradley, who's been a great mentor and a friend of mine. And through relationships with Lead 'em Up, Mano Watsa with BGC is a great mentor. People that we look at that have been involved with the Hardwood Hustle, and kind of that podcast in that space. And, I just continue to kind of grow and really take it as it comes, but lean into those people and let them kind of, really serve as a great guide of what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. So those are some people that jump out to me who have been very influential in my life and in my progression.
Again, those mentors, I love to hear those stories and those connections. Great that you've got family that were involved in the profession and people that were able to mentor you. And I don't think you can go wrong using John Wooden and his resources as well. I can reach over here to my bookcase and I've got 3 or 4 John Wooden books there. Let's go and talk a little bit about the company you're with right now, Lead 'em Up. Again, some of your posts on LinkedIn and other platforms, really intriguing. Share with our listeners who are mostly athletic directors what Lead 'em Up is and why they should be interested.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Love to share about what we do. And Lead 'em Up has been around for 7 years now. It was really kind of founded in Maryland with our founder Adam Bradley, and at the local high school level of working with teams and asking to come in and speak, into them and help build character and leadership skills. And it's evolved now where our program is dynamic, it's engaging, it's used by youth, high school, college teams all over the country. We provide coaches with a dynamic library that's filled with leadership, character, communication drills that they can use. And we provide live training for teams as well that go through the Lead 'em Up experience. And we're fortunate to work with so many different teams and athletes and be able to kind of help them, get to the level that they want as a program and as a team. But it's rewarding in that space to where we can alleviate, and our goal is to alleviate a lot of the pressure on the coaches and athletic directors where they want to do extra. They want to provide more for their athletes and their teams, but we know that they're crunched for time and they're pressed for time, and they're very limited in that capacity. So that's kind of where I got involved in it. I was a local football coach, and every year I would come up with like a 10-week program where I wanted to speak to the athletes or give them more than just, like I said, the X's and O's. So I would have like a weekly theme. And let's say like it was heart, character, integrity, trust, things of that nature for each week. I would compile some stories, some quotes to share, put some video clips, movie clips together to kind of emphasize that. And it was effective and the athletes enjoyed it, but it was never anything that I knew it was the best it could be. So I started just kind of looking around. I was like, talking to people like, I think I want to, do something more in this regard, because as I would go to coaching conferences and clinics, I was more drawn to the people that were talking about the leadership and the character aspect of sport and building that in their athletes. And one year I was driving up to Indiana from Missouri, and I was going to a Brendan Sir Coaching You live clinic there. And I remember just kind of seeing on social, on Twitter, the advertisement for this Hardwood Hustle podcast. And I started listening to the episodes when I was driving, and I got to know this guy, Adam Bradley. And as Adam began to talk on these episodes and share kind of like his heart for coaches and athletes, I was like, that's exactly what I want. That's what I need. And later on, after listening to episodes, I found out that he was starting Lead 'em Up, and then I just kind of reached out, developed a relationship with him, and we kept in touch and things worked out. But that's kind of like where my heart was as a coach and why I got involved with Lead 'em Up and saw what they could do, and then I used it as a coach and experienced it and saw what it can do for a team and for a coach. And I've been fortunate to kind of help other coaches now experience that same thing with their teams.
Yeah, and again, you made a really good point at the beginning. The job of the coach and for the athletic director has grown so much. Obviously, since I was in school, but even since I, became an athletic director, there's just so many more aspects to it, and it's hard for anyone, a coach or an AD, to be an expert in all of these facets. And so, that's where a
Absolutely.
platform like Lead 'em Up can come in. Really cool stuff. We'll do this again, but and we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into some of the features of Lead 'em Up. But right now, Kyle, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out to you, pick your brain a little bit more, or go to Lead 'em Up, what's the website? What's the email? How can they do that?
Absolutely. Our website is leademup.com, leademup.com. And my email, which I'll respond very promptly to, is Kyle, just Kyle, at leademup.com.
Okay. Kyle Elmendorf, leademup.com. We're going to be back in just a minute. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Please stay with us. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school's record boards and your Hall of Fame, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles and an entire library of templates that'll help you recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com and let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Raise. Go to snapraise.com or go to OnSnap, that's onsnap.com, for more information on their platform. For fundraising, Snap Raise is just fantastic. At my school, our coaches use Snap Raise, and it was just great. As an athletic director, I knew what was going on, but I didn't have to be involved. There's no upfront cost. Your data is secure. It works. They even have a platform where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Go to snapraise.com and check out the SnapRaise digital difference. Like I said, it's easy, it's safe, and it works. You can see the thousands and thousands of dollars that SnapRaise has helped schools just like yours raise using the SnapRaise digital fundraiser. Change your fundraising game plan and start a fundraiser that works for you. Go to snapraise.com to get started. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Kyle Elmendorf. He's the Director of Media Relations and Coaching for an organization called Lead 'em Up. Kyle, let's go and take a little bit of a deeper dive into Lead 'em Up. What are some of the features that, again, as a longtime coach, somebody who's been involved in athletics, you think would be most helpful, or maybe the coolest things that an AD or a coach would get out of Lead 'em Up?
Absolutely. We'd love to share this. And when coaches and ADs, we have kind of different tiered packages, whether it's a single team or if it's a whole athletic department for a school on what we provide. But when someone gains access to Lead 'em Up, they get a full digital library of dynamic leadership exercises and character building lessons that they can take their athletes through. And one of the great things about Lead 'em Up is it's not like your cookie cutter basic type program that a lot of students and athletes see in schools. We have developed a curriculum what we say has been created by educators and coaches and creatives. So when athletes experience it, it's more situational based training rather than just experiencing something that's shown to them on a PowerPoint slide or up on a board, but they get to go through it. And one of the things that we believe in is that leadership is a skill. Now, some may believe that leaders are naturally born and some are better leaders than others, and there's some truth to that. But one of our foundational beliefs is that leadership is a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed. It just needs reps, it needs repetitions. And so what we do is provide that blueprint for coaches to where they log in, and we have created custom tracks that coaches can use where we line out, this is what you want to do week 1 through 12. We also have a really cool feature now where coaches fill out a survey, and then we will personalize their experience and what their team gets to go through based upon the needs that they have with this year's group. And we have, themes that we really focus on teaching. And when we look at like our themes, we're focused on like trust, we focus on relationships, communication, confidence, self-awareness. And when athletes go through that, they are speaking a leadership language that we teach them that's unique. And I think that's one of the things that really makes our program stand out and that coaches love is they learn a phrase or a word that's unique to a certain concept. So I'll speak on accountability because that's a big word that we always want to use with athletes is being self-accountable and being accountable to their teammates and to the goals. And that's one where, athletes, when they hear that word, it kind of sometimes just maybe goes over the top, or it's a word that is often used but never fully explained. So the way that we teach that is called lifeguarding, completely different word. But the way that we kind of teach that, and just a snippet of this, is that, the lifeguard's job is to protect the beach. And we always say that the best lifeguard is a dry lifeguard. It's one that doesn't actually have to get in the water. So if we're lifeguarding our team, what does that look like? And we teach them, these are the warning signs that you want to look out for. And that kind of goes to like a foundational thing. Like everything we do in Lead 'em Up is built upon making leadership go viral on the team. And we want we want today's athletes to experience it in a way that it speaks to them. So we filter everything through an MPS filter. We will sit down, we'll talk about themes, it will be tested, it'll go back to the drawing board, we'll rework it, go out, test it with teams again, and then eventually it'll get into our digital vault. But we say it's an MPS filter, it's memorable. Our core exercise and foundational piece is the green team. If anyone follows us on social media, you're going to see teams posting about it all the time. Be green, build green. And that is kind of like our mantra and what our core, standard exercise is. It's portable, meaning that it goes from the classroom to the athletic field to all walks of life. And then it sticks. And that's the last part, MPS, memorable, portable, and sticky. In, teaching the green team, we talked about lifeguarding. If we're teaching communication, our core exercise there is sugar and salt. And when athletes experience it, the best thing for the coach is that you can automatically say that phrase. And let's say we were talking about lifeguarding and an athlete comes up to a coach and they point something out that they see at practice and so could be better at this, or I'm noticing this, or they haven't been at practice for 2 days, or their effort is really subpar right now. We can kind of call attention to, well, have we been lifeguarding? Are we helping them? Are we noticing the warning signs? Are we speaking them in the right context? And all of those things kind of play into one another there. And, I think that's one of the great features is we have a unique leadership language and we have these exercises that the athletes, when they experience them, they want more. And they're asking, when can we do this again? And I think that's the great thing about what coaches and what ADs experience through Lead 'em Up is that there is now an excitement for leadership and character development rather than it's just we're doing this. It's not a have to, it's a get to. And that's, I think, kind of the great thing about what we build up in that type of setting there.
Yeah, I love that acronym, the MPS. And again, I think your focus is probably mostly, high school coaches, but we see college coaches do this all the time. ESPN will do a feature on, this, big D1 coach, and it's not the coach delivering, these messages, these types of messages. It's some expert that they've brought in that can speak to them personally. Well, a lot of high schools can't do that, but this sounds like Lead 'em Up sounds like a great platform where, high school coach can, have that expert, excitement and leadership thing going on. Very, very cool. One more time, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, find out more about Lead 'em Up, or just pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, my email is Kyle, Kyle, at leademup.com. And our website is leademup.com, just LEADEMUP.com.
We're visiting today with Kyle Elmendorf from Lead 'em Up. We're going to be back with some more, so please stay with us. We're going to take a quick break, though. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thank you to Gipper for their support of the podcast. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors and coaches are creating world-class marketing content for their school social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Go to Gipper.com, mention their podcast code, which is ADPOD10, and get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Start creating custom branded content for your school's social media channels. Gipper.com. We also want to thank Huddle. Go to huddle.com. Huddle is how the world sees sports. Over 200,000 teams across 40 sports use Huddle to help their athletes play better using video and analytics. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but as an athletic director, our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just love the mobile apps, the smart cameras. Of course, they love the analytics, but there's so much more. Huddle provides a professional grade solution for the challenges you face as an AD. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and go to huddle.com. Find out how your school can become a Huddle school. That's huddle.com.
Hey, Jake, thanks again for having us on and being able to shine a light on Lead 'em Up and the athletic community and what we can do to help. And for your listeners out there, we'd like to extend a discount for subscribing and joining our Lead 'em Up family. Coaches and athletic directors can simply go to leademup.com and upon checkout, enter the code EDADPOD25 and you'll be able to receive 25% off your subscription to Lead 'em Up. Again, that's EDADPOD25 or 25% discount. And if you have further questions regarding our programs, please reach out to me directly.
Wow, thank you so much. So I know you mentioned that, but I'm going to mention it one more time. EDAD Pod 25 for a 25% discount. Wow, thanks so much for doing that.
Our pleasure.
Well, let's get back to the podcast. One of the questions that we've asked almost since we began has to do with this idea of toughness. I always say 100 years ago, back when I was in high school, our coaches would say things like, come on, Jake, you got to be tough, or come on, you got to suck it up. And we kind of knew what they meant. In the many years since I was in high school, we figured out much better ways to communicate with our student athletes. But I still think toughness is an important component of the athletic experience and for life. So here's my question. How can a coach or an athletic director help a kid to develop toughness while also being aware of the very real challenges that a Generation Z kid is experiencing that I never had to go through? Do you have any advice for us?
It's a great question, Jake. And a great point, too, is that this generation is experiencing and been through so much just in the past couple of years alone that you and I never had to deal with. And I think it first has to start with just like the definition of toughness and what we're looking at it. Because as you mentioned, when we were growing up, toughness was almost always associated with physical toughness. And my personal belief is that it's probably 90% mental toughness is what we're looking to build and instill, if not 95%. So when I think of toughness and what we can do is we have to equip them. We have to instill in them the values and the beliefs that would allow them to show mental toughness. It's like you allude to, it's often seen or heard to where you're saying, come on, we got to be tougher than that. Well, what does that mean? Right? What does it mean to be tough? And for me, when I think of those things, it's we've got to build up the confidence in the individual. And when you have self-confidence and you have self-awareness and you have self-esteem, you're going to be able to handle life's challenges. But a lot of our athletes today, they're just simply, for whatever reason, not necessarily equipped to really navigate some of those challenges and come out of that, on the better end of that. So the first thing I think that we have to do is help them connect with other people and develop that real connection, not just the surface level connections that, exist. We got to get beyond that because when they do encounter difficult situations or toughness, those are the type of people and relationships that are going to help them through that they can lean on. And if you don't have the skill of developing a connection, then oftentimes you're left to navigate it alone. And that can be a very difficult and a very daunting task for our young people. With that, I think also is the ability to communicate. You know, we need to help them communicate with confidence, with clarity, and do so in a way that allows them to express their thoughts, their feelings. But then, as the other part of communication is receiving information, like how can I receive information and really do so in a great way where people want to pour more into me, or they want to help me out at a greater level. And I think those are some things where we can provide athletes situational type of training and experiences to where when you go through that, your mental toughness will increase. You'll be able to look at things through a different light. But I think there's got to be some intent behind it. And there's definitely got to be some things that are real world skills that I kind of alluded to there that can help that mental toughness grow.
Yeah, and again, you really hit on the key points of defining, what toughness is, and you're absolutely right. It's that mental toughness, and being able to define, okay, this is what we're doing right now that requires mental toughness, that allows that physical toughness to develop. Very good stuff. Okay, for our listeners, our guest is Kyle Elmendorf. He's the director of coaching and media relations for a really cool platform called Lead 'em Up. We're going to take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we'll be back with some more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration and forms, but there's so much more than that. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility. They've got reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that come with athletics. Final Forms can also help your coaches with things like attendance and communication. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help you with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. It's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with Final Forms. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Once again, our guest is Kyle Elmendorf from Lead 'em Up. Kyle, you and I were talking during the break a little bit, and you mentioned a current issue, or maybe it was issues that you wanted to share with our listeners. Let's go and go down that path. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I kind of sent out a message earlier this week in a group chat with some of our Lead 'em Up regional coaches and just kind of asked the question of, what are some things that you're hearing from coaches, from athletic directors that are challenges, things that are really kind of pressing for them, or things that are an issue at large that needs help addressing. And kind of a common theme is post COVID, as many schools are kind of getting back to everything being in a normal routine in life. It's been difficult. It's been a challenge for our athletes, and you kind of have to pause and think a little bit about it too, because the kids that are just now freshmen in high school were in sixth grade when everything kind of shut down, when everything hit. And those are some really important formative years in developing as an individual in and out of the classroom. And we're seeing athletic directors and coaches talk about athletes struggling with connecting with others, with performing well in school, with having self-discipline and being able to kind of show up at a regular, whether it's attendance or just like giving your best. And a lot of them are kind of navigating it alone. This affected a lot of families. It affected a lot of athletes, everybody in a different way. And, we're kind of seeing where the support maybe isn't there necessarily at home. So now a lot of that is going towards the athletic directors and the coaches in the school community. And, that's kind of like, again, the heart of what we do and why we do what we do is to help coaches and athletic directors navigate that. But it's a very, very challenging and difficult situation because these student athletes are all at a different place, but many of them are struggling to get back to what it was once for them. But a lot of them, the high school experience is new, and they've gone through most of their middle school or early high school years in a non-traditional setting that was, a challenge for them to interact personally. And now getting back to teams and schools and routines of how to manage all of that and life has been a challenge for them that we've seen.
Yeah, I really love how you illustrate there the current high school freshmen and their path. Sometimes as teachers and coaches, we just think, oh, it's the next crop of students, and now we've got them for 4 years. But taking a look at what they've gone through and how their perspective, how they see the world is different, obviously, from myself and even you did. Very, very great good observation there. Kyle, this has been really cool. Spending some time with you, finding out more about Lead 'em Up and getting to know a little bit more about you, Missouri guy. But
Absolutely.
we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. You certainly know your way around the world of athletics, and Lead 'em Up certainly is a great, great resource. But in just a minute, we're going to take a break. We're going to hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor our Athletic Toolbox segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge Kyle to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let him put 3 things in their toolbox. So stick with us. We're going to find out what Kyle Elmendorf is going to put into his athletic director toolbox. We'll be right back. We want to say thank you to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. At my schools, we use surveys for just about everything, for teachers, for coaches, for kids, and for parents. And the information that came back was almost always positive, and it'll be the same for you. But those surveys also allowed that squeaky wheel parent to vent a little bit. And sometimes they'd share a small issue that you could address and keep it from turning into a big issue because you didn't know about it, because you didn't do a survey. Go to athleticsurveys.com or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at athleticsurveys.com and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting with Kyle Elmendorf from Lead 'em Up. Kyle, as we said, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but right now I'm going to ask you to send out a brand new AD, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go into Kyle Elmendorf's athletic director toolbox?
It's hard to narrow down to 3, but my big 3 that I would give or advise on is number 1, be visible. And I think that just goes a long way in building the culture that you want to establish as an AD, not only just with coaches, but with the athletes. So my challenge would be to that new AD is that get work done, the office work, while class is in session, before school starts, or maybe later on when there's passing periods or lunch periods. Don't always stand in the same spot. Go to different spots of the building. Be visible, interact, talk with every person in the building, and make sure that you're making them feel welcome and that they're invited to come to anything that you're doing, and that this is a one big school, one big family. So be visible, connect with anyone and everyone. Second thing I think is just promotion. And I would say be very active and learn the different platforms that the kids are on. I would obviously, a lot of coaches and athletic directors are on Twitter. Kids might not necessarily be on there, but Instagram is a big thing that they're on, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram. But the reason I say promote is I don't think sometimes schools do a good enough job or aren't maybe as intentional about promoting all the good that goes on in the programs, highlighting every coach, every program, every sport, the athletes, what they're accomplishing, giving a heads up of this week, this is what's on schedule. Here's some highlights, some recaps. There's just so much there. And I think the great thing is that that can be daunting as an AD, but that's where you can tap in and get some interns at school where these kids know the platforms better than we do and would love the opportunity to get that real world experience. And they can kind of, with your guidance, help run some of those pages and create a YouTube channel where, you're featuring coaches. You maybe develop your own sports show and have different guests on there. Those are some things that I would just really try to be visible and use, because it's not the traditional type of setting that we grew up in where, everyone's looking forward to school assemblies and things like that. That you got to meet the kids where they're at, and a lot of it's digital. So creating the content that they can consume that highlights what you're doing and what you're trying to build. Thirdly, I think it goes back to just building people more than anything else, is investing in the people in the program and investing in character and leadership. I think that is something that can separate the sports from any competitors. When you're looking at what school you want to attend, is you can look at parents, and if you're having a welcome night, or if there's an informational night where your school is being highlighted and there's tables out and you're putting stuff out in the community, is that, we are intentional at this school that we're giving them life skills. We're helping them develop character. We're helping them develop leadership skills, and we're helping them and these relationships and growing them at a high level, that once they leave this school, they can go out and they can feel confident in their ability to succeed at a high level. And, I think ultimately is everybody wants to be a part of something special. Everyone wants to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And how do you do that? Excuse me. How do we do that in a way that is meaningful and impactful? And I think that's where, again, we can come in and help with that. It is creating that experience that people want to be a part of, and that recruits other people to be a member of.
Yeah, boy, I really like the one that you let. Oh, I love them all, but I love the one you talk about being visible. It's so important. I think a lot of athletic directors, can get burdened by the busy work, like you said, trying to knock that stuff out while the kids are in class, and then get out there and be seen, at lunches, and especially after school, being seen at practices. And you talked about promoting all your programs. Don't be that athletic director that is only seen at the football games or only seen at that one sport. One more time, Kyle, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain, as well as find out more about Lead 'em Up, what's the best way that they can do that?
Absolutely. My email is Kyle, Kyle, at leademup.com. And then our website is just leademup.com, LEADEMUP.com.
Kyle Elmendorf, Director of Coaching and Media at Lead 'em Up. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, and thanks for that discount. Let's go and mention that one more time for our listeners.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jake. It was a blast. Appreciate all that you do to serve the athletic director community, coaches out there who are pouring into our young people. So you're such a shining light in that community, and applaud you for all that you're doing and building. And for your listeners out there, they can use the code EDAD Pod 25, EDAD Pod 25 to get 25% off their subscription to Lead 'em Up.
All right. Again, Kyle Elmendorf, Lead 'em Up. Thanks again. For listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back next time and just about every day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. Have a great day. Thanks again for listening. We want to thank We Coach and the Global Community, our two partners, for being involved. We Coach and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.